As I write this on February the 15th of 2015, I'm in quite the reflective mood. Today is the 4-year anniversary of my father's passing, or crossing over if you prefer. This little piece may be inspired by him, but it is my intention to write to anyone who's had to endure the death of a loved one so that you know you are not alone in your struggle. My father passed unexpectedly, which I have always believed to be a poor term. Losing someone should never really be expected. In 2011, while in my arms. The Native Americans have a story about a father's last words to his son. The details escape me at the moment. However, I can say that for me I certainly experienced something spiritual as I tried to no avail to revive him doing CPR. I remember it as if it happened yesterday. His last breath was trapped in his body, and when I opened his mouth every bit of it flooded into my lungs and filled me up like a balloon. The moment it did, I heard his voice in my heart and mind, though not the voice I had grown up hearing, rather the voice of a young man, but without a doubt my father's. He said, "Don't panic, son. Everything is going to be okay." At that moment I felt a peace that I had never known before, and though I continued to perform CPR until the paramedics arrived, my heart was content with what was happening. My father had been allowed by the powers that be to pierce the veil between this world and the next to offer me comfort when I needed it most. This experience taught me that when a loved one crosses over, it isn't so much that they go away, rather they go everywhere. I knew firsthand that those on the other side can still see us, hear us, touch us, and especially communicate with us. Perhaps they cannot hug you with the flesh they once had, but they can hug you in other ways. One simply has to be open to receiving such communication from the other side. In the 4 years since my father's passing, my life has gone down many unexpected roads, and to this day, I don't know if that has been a result of the event or if it was always a foregone conclusion. I often wonder why my father chose, and yes, I do believe people choose their time of passing in some form or another, to leave before some of the most important moments of my life, moments where I truly needed him in the flesh. Looking back now, I believe the reason was because he knew there was going to be moments in my life when I needed to stand up alone and without anyone else's helping hand to lift me up. I believe he wanted me to realize my own strength and to realize that within me is all I would ever need to overcome the obstacles of life. I cannot say it was easy performing such a feat, but nevertheless, and thus so far, I have done just that. I really haven't had that much of a choice, and if you've lost a loved one, you haven't either. When they first leave, you look around and wonder why the world hasn't stopped, why everyone else is still going about business as usual. It confuses you, it angers you, and it saddens you. You're then surrounded by family and friends for a time that constantly want to know how you're doing through emails, messages, and phone calls, and eventually that comes to a halt. You eventually don't hear from anyone anymore, and you realize you were alone in your mourning. Sure, others may mourn, but not the way you mourn. Truth be told, you never really get to mourn until all those family and friends fade back into their own little worlds with their own little lives. And it is only when you are sitting at the table with a cup of coffee alone, staring out the window when the mourning is actually done, you think of your lost loved one and wonder what the two of you would be doing today had they not left. You think of all the things you didn't get to say or didn't get to ask and kick yourself for having taken so many days for granted. On occasion, you accidentally try to call them, or remember that you need to tell them something before the realization that they are no longer here comes back to mind. That's when the tears flow, pumped by the heaves of the gut. Over time, the sharpness of the pain does become dull, and you reorganize your life in a manner that no longer involves the lost loved one. It takes a while to get there, but eventually you do. That's when songs come on the radio or books come across your path that remind you of them, and rather than being sad, you begin to smile at all the fond memories the two of you made together. This is when you begin to appreciate the fragility of time and how precious each individual in your life truly is. This is when you begin to behave in a manner in which you treat each and every person you meet as if they are the one you lost. It doesn't matter if you know them for 1 minute or 1 million years. You see and appreciate their value in simply existing. After some time of doing this, you finally see that you yourself should be treated the same, especially by you yourself. You begin to realize your own value in the life of others, the example you set for those around you. When this realization comes, you begin to behave differently. You begin to interact with this world differently. You see the beauty in each passing moment, the miracle in each exchanged word. Before long, you are a completely different person, able to grasp the beauty and wonder of this thing we call life. Rather than waking up day after day and trudging through, you see each moment as the miracle that it is. With new eyes and a new heart, you begin to live life again in a fresh and unexpected way. You begin to live life with angels on your shoulder and the Spirit of God in your heart. Then it occurs to you that none of that would have been possible if you had not lost that loved one. Once that hits, you begin to see that they left when they left for this sole purpose. They left to elevate you in your awareness of this world. Like any plant or flower, it must first be buried in darkness so that it may push upwards against the soil in order to reach the light of the sun. It must struggle against the odds before it can blossom into what it was meant to be. Yes, there is pain. Yes, there is loss. Yes, there are lonely nights of tear-filled pillows. But when all that's said and done, there is contentment. There is peace. I could say that 4 years since my father crossed over, I've ran through the gambit of emotions in regards to losing a loved one, and if there's anything I can say regarding the experience, it would be from the old Christian hymn, "All is well with my soul." I'm not going to sit here and tell you of one religious faith or another, because religion is something I'm wholeheartedly against. However, I can tell you that there isn't one faith that does not speak of the reunion between the living and the dead. I think this universal truth is precious and should be examined in all our lives. There will be a time when the lines between worlds is blurred, and those perceived as lost will be found. My suggestion to all of you is to stop waiting for that day and experience it now. Our loved ones can indeed hear us, they can indeed see us, and though it may seem a little mystical, they are no farther from us than a prayer or a thought. All one needs to do is simply believe. When one does that, the universe will move to prove that, as Einstein said, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And our loved ones are exactly that, energy. Therefore, they are all around us, watching us, guiding us, loving us. Our five-sense limitation may oftentimes fool us into thinking otherwise, but we must remember that the five senses are, just as I said, a limitation. It takes that other thing, that unexplainable thing, to tap into the realm of the ethereal. Much to the disappointment of skeptics, it is indeed possible. So, if you've lost a loved one, or seemingly lost a loved one, I would encourage you to skip a few steps and jump straight to the part with the joy. There is beauty in death, believe it or not. It isn't an end of a relationship, it is merely the evolution of a relationship. Evolve with it, because after all, that was the point. It took me some time to learn that, but I hope that in my education you are somehow enlightened and expedited to this fact. Life never really ends, it only evolves. From my father to me, and from me to you. Be well.
You taught me the courage of stars before you left. How light carries on endlessly, even after death, with sureness of breath. You explain the infinite, how rare and beautiful it is to even exist. I couldn't help but ask you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I could never find the pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eye. And I couldn't help but ask you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I could never find the pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eyes. The shortness of breath, I'll explain the infinite, how rare and beautiful it truly is. exist.